Good afternoon and welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, January 13th, 2025. I will call the meeting to order at 5 p.m. First item on the agenda is land acknowledgement. The town of Coaldale acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot peoples of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot peoples past, present, and future while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The town of Coaldale is also home to Métis District 1 Foothills. Agenda item 1.2, conflict of interest, declaration, pecuniary and non-pecuniary. Are there any in the room this afternoon? None declared, thank you. Moving on to acceptance of the agenda. Agenda item 2.1 for the regular council meeting for today, January 13th, 2025. Are there any additions or deletions? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council adopt the regular council meeting agenda for January 13th, 2025 as presented? Councillor Pickering. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Adoption of the previous minutes. Agenda item 3.1, the regular council meeting minutes from December 9th, 2024. Were there any errors or omissions in those minutes? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council adopt the regular council meeting minutes from December 9th, 2024 as presented? Councillor Reese makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 3.2, the special council meeting minutes from December 17th, 2024. Were there any errors or omissions in those minutes? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion to adopt the special council meeting minutes from December 17th as presented? Deputy Mayor Chapman makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to delegation by appointment, agenda item 4.1. We have Staff Sergeant Mike Numan with us with our local R.C.M.P detachment. He'll be giving us a community policing Q2 report. Staff Sergeant, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, and all those in attendance tonight. Welcome. As you indicated, I'm here to present our Q2 for this year report, which is July 1st to September 30th, 2024. I realize with the holidays and everything, this is a little bit late, but it was the only time that we could make our schedules work for me to come here. I will be back in February to do Q3, so we'll get a little more timely stats there. Also, I'd like to mention I just received our 5-year statistics for year over year for the last 5 years, which I think are a better picture for you folks to have a look at. So I will incorporate that into my next presentation, and it gives us a better idea from today to 5 years ago how we're doing with our statistics. You all would have got the package that I sent over, and basically the cover letter. We are rolling out our body-worn cameras nationally. In this province, they started in mid-November with some detachments. As you can imagine, it's a very onerous task, and it's going to take, they're anticipating 12 to 18 months to get every R.C.M.P detachment and unit up and running with body-worn cameras. We have not been on that list yet, but I anticipate this in the next few months here that we will be the next detachments to roll that out. So there'll be more to come on that when that does happen. If we go into the municipal policing report, that is a 9-page document that I had sent over, and basically it covers the areas, our priorities, and then the areas that we excelled in and all the different initiatives that we undertook. I'm not going to go into detail with each one line by line. You all were able to have a look at that. I will say that our community priorities of traffic, safety, police community relations, and intelligence-led policing continues through Q2 and through Q3 as well. During Q2, we did have an increase in traffic enforcement due to proactive patrols by the membership. We are trying to get our members to do more of that. We are staffing-wise in much better shape, and we do have some, I wouldn't say free time, but members have the ability now to get out and do some of that proactive policing in all our communities, including Coaldale. As far as community relations, we continue to do really well in this area. I'm proud of our members. In that quarter, we did 46 different events attended or took part in, and that can vary from school talks to detachment visits to bike patrols, those types of things. So that is quite a bit for a detachment this size, and we again are committed to being involved in our community, and we'll continue to do so moving forward. And our third priority is intelligence-led policing, basically crime prevention. So how can we educate the communities to be aware of things like fraud, those types of crimes that we're seeing more and more of? And also, how do we focus on the 10% that I've talked about of people who commit 90% of our crimes? How do we keep them out of trouble or behind bars or whatever it takes? So we continue to work with our local municipal police services, Lethbridge Police, Tabor, Blood Tribe. We have a specialized unit in Calgary, our crime reduction unit, that comes down and assists us on major files. And we will certainly, we have intelligence briefings every month and to talk about those high flyers that we need to focus on. We continue to do that, and it is effective, and we share information daily on those types of events without getting into too much detail. So that covers page 1 of our priorities. And again, September was the end of Q2, and we started our school or resource officer program again. Unable to commit a dedicated person, each member is assigned a school or 2, and they're asked to go to the school a couple times a month, just touch base with the principal, take part in any programs, and we're continuing that throughout the school year. Community consultations. I won't get into too much detail, but specific to Coaldale, you know, we had a big summer games in the Coaldale and area. We were actively involved in that. Took part in the planning with the Firechief and all emergency services, and that was a really great event that went off really well, and everybody was safe. So that's great. We continue to work with the new COP, Citizens on Patrol program, in their fruition to get that program up and running. And, you know, we're going to dedicate a liaison and continue to do so. That will kind of be that conduit between the R.C.M.P and the COP program. Next page, consultation 3. Again, tour of the Coaldale detachment to 12 children. We had MP Rachel Thomas and 2 of our office staff come for a tour. She had never been to our Coaldale detachment. It was a great tour. She had a lot of questions, and we discussed things that were concerning to her, and kind of just gave her an overview of how our day-to-day life goes as a police officer in Alberta. She appreciated that. We did camp day. We had Tim Hortons, bike patrols in downtown Coaldale, and the Link Pathway, MPE Link Pathway, and attended that grand opening ceremony. I know we're talking about biking in wintertime, but this was, remember, in August, September. So, and the Summerfest again, which ran in August, really great attendance there, and our members were very involved in that as well. I did want to talk a little bit about our VSU, Victim Services Unit. As we all know, October 1st, the current program ceased to exist, and it transitioned to the new provincial Victim Services program. there was a few barriers that we faced with that, but we do have two full-time ladies in our office now that have taken up that role and began the transition there. It will take some time. They're new to the roles as well, and you know, they're trying to figure out provincially how this program is going to work and how they're going to manage it. But definitely have a good relationship with our two local ladies, and we will continue to do so and help them with whatever they need to get that program up and running to help our members and help the public and victims of crime. Also, I attended a Chamber of Commerce meeting and discussed the capture program to a bunch of the business owners that were present for that meeting. That was a really great interaction and lots of good questions and some follow-up information that was shared there as well. Okay, we can go to our crime stats. As I'd indicated before, quarter crime stats are good, but they're not as good as a year over year, in my opinion, because you need a full year to see what the snapshot of the crime is happening in that area. If we do look at this small chart here, from July, September, there was some increases between 2023 and 2024 from 22 to 31 persons crimes. Remembering that persons crimes are any crime that's against a person, whether it's an assault, another threats, things like that. Property crimes is to do with property. So we did have an increase in that, and later on in the more in-depth stats, it kind of shows that assaults were up quite a bit for this quarter as compared to others, and we can talk more about that. And for some reason, municipal bylaws went from 8 to 22. We do see a fair number of bylaw calls come into our unit, which we then most of the time have a really great relationship with CPO Mark Anderson and his team and Clayton, and they for the most part take all those bylaws on, and we assist when required or as needed. So during the summer, we're seeing a lot more calls for stray animals, those types of things, parking, which Mark and his team for the most part deal with, which frees us up to do our criminal code investigations. Trends and points of interest at the bottom of that page. Property crime and drug offenses continue to be a concern within our community. You know, we're still having the people checking your cars at night, and it's a certain small handful of the same people, and you know, we deal with it and arrest them when we can and when we have the evidence, and go through the judicial system as we are or have to do. We will continue to focus on that. And I believe the last page is to do with our human resources. Really good news. We are back up to, we have one vacancy in our 10 municipal positions. And that one vacancy is the one that you approved last year. It is being reclassed, as we had discussed, to a municipal GIS position. And then I'm reclassing a supervisor out of the provincial position to be a corporal in charge of that unit. So that's in the works. Alberta is very short right now on police officers. We are having a difficult time keeping up with the people that are leaving, the vacancies, those types of things. So being that we have only one short, they're not going to fill our position when there's other remote locations that are at 50% or 35% staffing. It makes sense, but I've been told that our Regina depot is ramped up and they are pumping out a lot of cadets, so we should see that even off here this year. Okay. And Alana's ahead of me. That's perfect. So then we get more to the detailed crime stats. It's a 2-page document, same one that I come with every quarter, and it really kind of shows you the category. So the first category is persons crimes, and those are all the things that are scored in a person's crime. And if you see the assaults, 2023 we had 8, 2024 we had 23. So that's why you show 188% increase. Not a huge number, 8 to 23. The reason for that, I looked at a few of the files, a lot of domestic violence, a lot of people not getting along, resulting in physical contact with each other. So numbers not too alarming. If I look back to 2020 and 2021, and there was 18 both years, so it's not way over the scale, but something to keep an eye on is for sure. The other one, if we go down to total property crimes, is the theft of motor vehicle. We went from 3 to 5. And again, the percentages are huge, but that's 2 more than last year, 67%. And yes, it is still present. We still are losing vehicles in this whole area, especially vehicles that are left unlocked with keys in them, making it easy targets. So we really need to promote that. Lock your stuff. Can't leave things open. Don't leave valuables in your vehicles, and security systems, those types of things. And the other one is frauds went up a little bit, couple 9 to 11 year over year, and that's up 22%. And we all know and receive the phone calls and emails, people trying to scam. Best advice I can give anybody is nobody, no bank, no federal government agency will call you asking for money. It will be more formal than that, and they certainly won't want it paid in Apple cards or gift cards. So one thing to pass on to anybody that you're speaking with. If we go to page 2, as I look down, all of our percentages are down, except for the ones that I've messaged. I do know that Coaldale still remains one of the best places to live for crime, the lowest crime in the province of Alberta for the population, and we're going to maintain that. Bylaws are up a little bit in charges and occurrences from 5 to 19. Again, I think that's hand in hand with the calls that we're getting for animals, those types of things. Nothing else really jumped out at me until we get down to the police activities at the bottom. If we are looking at things that take up some time, false alarms, suspicious vehicles, and people reported missing take up a lot of members' time. Those aren't too bad, and 911 calls are down, so that is awesome. Those are the statistics, and I would be happy to answer any questions about any of my presentation.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant. I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions, comments? Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you very much, Staff Sergeant, for your first of the year report, and appreciate seeing you. I wanted to, first of all, just off the top of my head, to thank you for particularly your presence in the community and how visible you have been since you started here in Coaldale. And I think if I compare to other members at your level, your presence has certainly been the most visible, and people have really appreciated you. Have heard numbers of people commend your work here in the community. With that, I just wanted to also thank you on behalf of one group that I know that you speak to numbers of groups in the community, and one particular group from the Coaldale Mennonite Church who MLA Hunter has spoken with. I think our mayor has been there as well to speak, yourself, and then upcoming will be Chief Rutberg will be speaking in February. So they've really appreciated your presentations and how you've really connected the dots for them, and just how you express yourself in the community really means a lot. My question to you is with regards to, I mentioned last time you spoke about railway crossings and our situation that we had earlier this fall. And I just wanted to see if you had any updates on that or your connections with the CP police and how that's working out.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Just one word of advice for Firechief Rutberg: bring your appetite when you go to the Mennonite church, because they will feed you awesome food. Yes, I put together a meeting with the school principal, the high school principal, the CP police, the inspector in charge in Calgary, myself, and CPO Mark Anderson. We had a meeting. I can't remember when it was shortly after that incident where we had the train stopped. And CP police have committed to the principal to do some presentations to the school students at their next staff meeting or their next assembly. Also, they're going to do Rail Week there and bring some materials. We looked at the signage there. It's pretty clear what you should and shouldn't do there. So I don't know there's much more we can add for signage. And we were going to monitor it from there. To my knowledge, I haven't seen any further incidents yet since that time. But having said that, that was a very concerning thing that occurred with having those students crawling through the train as it was stopped there to get across. So we will certainly keep on that.
Any further questions, comments for the staff sergeant? So just before I let you go then, Mike, you touched on it earlier for our viewers at home that are watching today. Can you speak a little bit to what a conversation you and I had about a year and a half ago about implementing citizens on patrol in Coaldale? And you could give us a bit of an update from your perspective, you being to several of the meetings, and how you think that's moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I've been in other communities and been involved in Citizens on Patrol or Real Crime Watch. A little bit different, but still very community engaged and involved. Citizens on Patrol programs are valuable to the community. They're valuable to the police, not only the R.C.M.P in this community, but for Clayton and his staff as well, the CPOs. Just an extra set of eyes and ears for us to rely on. If we have certain things that we're looking for or certain crime trends that are happening, we can certainly share that information with the group, and then they can task their members with doing those patrols. I think the biggest thing with this organization is the CPO program or COP program in Coaldale has done it the right way. A lot of times we see groups try and form, they do it hastily, and then it doesn't work, and then everybody just quits and gives up. From what I've seen and been a part of is we've done the training, we've got an executive in place who are committed, and they are doing it the right way. And we commit as the R.C.M.P to share that information as much as we can with that group once they get up and running. I think we also had our provincial representative come and do a course, which was very valuable, so that people are not thinking that they're going to be apprehending suspects or just watching TV. We want to make sure everybody's safe, and we want to make sure that we can work together with them. And I think, with the measures in place and the very formal program that's in place here in Coaldale, we should hopefully soon see that group up and running, and we're looking forward to working with them.
Perfect. Thank you for that update. Seeing no more questions or comments, could I get someone to entertain, make a motion that council receive the R.C.M.P Q2 Community Policing Report as information? Councillor Pickering, any further discussion? Seeing, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much for your presentation. Moving on to agenda item 4.2, we're honored to have our Tabor Warner MLA Grant Hunter in the house this evening. And Grant, whenever you're ready, we want to give an opportunity to check in with what's going on not only in the province but also in the town of Coaldale.
I hope that you had some time with your family and were able to rest and rejuvenate. So I wanted to meet with each of the councils in my riding and go through what has happened in the past year. I also wanted to talk about some of the things we're going to see in 2025, or some of the things you're going to see as well. And then also talk about your priorities that you'd like to have me take back to Edmonton, to the legislature. So if we do that, I also want to give you just kind of a State of the Union, an update on what's happening in the province. As you know, we've made lots of changes for Alberta in the last 5 years. We have worked tirelessly to try to be able to bring back the Alberta Advantage, and we're starting to see that that work come to fruition. In December, we had 35,000 more Albertans working, new jobs, which accounted for actually 40% of all of Canada's private sector job creation. So I want to put that into perspective. We have 12% of the population of Canada, but we created 40% of Canada's private sector jobs. And, you know, there's measures you can take a look at, but I think that's probably one of the best measures that I look at is how are we doing in terms of being able to get Albertans back to work in good paying jobs. The other thing to remember is that weekly earnings is the highest in Canada here in Alberta. And so not only do we have more people, and also participation rates are the highest as well in Canada. So those are the three things that I kind of look at in order to be able to figure out if we're doing the right things from a provincial standpoint to be able to help Albertans get back to work. So I wanted to just go through, recap a few of the pieces of legislation that we went through that I think were difficult to do, but they were the right thing to do. We passed Bill 27, the Education Amendment Act, and this was the act that actually specifically talked about transgender issues within the school system, and about whether or not we are going to be allowing underage kids to be able to determine their or change their pronouns. We said that that's fine as long as the parent is informed, and that's what this bill does. Is it actually says we want parents to be not just informed, but actually have the consent. We need to have parents be the primary responsible person for the child. And that's something that's very important for us in the Conservative Party. It's part of our, it's part of the in our Constitution for the Conservative Party of Alberta. So this is something that we wanted to make sure that it showed within our the bill that we passed. We also made changes to the Alberta Bill of Rights as well. This was a promise that the Premier had made during her campaign. This changed so that people have the right and the ability to determine what is going to be going into their body and what isn't. So this is in terms of what's happening with any issues where if you get to decide whether or not you're going to take a vaccine or not. And there are extenuating circumstances, but this kind of strengthened this notion of bodily autonomy. We also worked to we changed the law when it came, or we created a law that said that biological men will not be allowed to compete with biological women unless it's a co-ed program that they're involved in. I saw some video footage of some boxing and some other types of sports that I was quite concerned that there would be, some lady was going to get killed. And so we made the change. Again, those are things that we kind of took it on the chin on, but we feel like it was the right thing to do. in Alberta. I will tell you the truth. I don't like to weigh into these matters. I think that these should be determined within communities, within families, within churches, within in local areas. But I think our hand was forced on these issues, and that's why the province stepped in to be able to address those issues. And then the other piece of legislation on that issue that was passed was a health issue, or was a health act, and that changed the rules so that nobody under the age of 18 can have bottom or top surgeries done, transition surgeries done, and hormone blockers done. And the Premier's rationale, and I agree with her on this, was that these decisions should be made by adults. They are life-changing, and so children should not be making those decisions. Those be made by adults. And so those are some of the things that we wade into some deep water on those. I'm sure you saw the news as well as I did. And so, but as we've gone through it, I think that Albertans, I can tell you that the Albertans, specifically in my writing, have been happy that we've done this. I also wanted to talk to you about the Alberta's Affordable Housing Partnership Program. We announced that we're going to be adding $150 million to this program to help support initiatives in housing solutions. And that is, so your applications have to be submitted between November 22nd of last year and January 31st of 2025. And so I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that, so that you, if you have any of those projects that you wanted to do, that you could get your application in prior to the 31st deadline. We've made some changes to the auto insurance laws in Alberta. You'll know the term no-fault insurance. It's not what we call it, but that is basically what we've done. Is we've created a no-fault scenario where our costs of insurance were higher than every place else in the country other than one other province. And so we had to do something like this in order to be able to kind of bring those prices down. And one of the reasons why we went to no fault is because you don't have to continue to pay for lawyers if you already determine what that care of practice is going to be. So we believe that will decrease the insurance costs for Albertans. Obviously, there are people that are not too happy about that, namely some of the lawyers that's what they did. So also, I wanted to let you know that we have ramped up the nurse practitioner program. We now have almost 35. We have 35 nurse practitioners that are in the nurse practitioner primary care program, and we are going to do everything we can to try to be able to ramp that up, as we know that there's a shortage of doctors, especially family doctors. We know that nurse practitioners can do 80% of what a family practitioner can do. So we'll continue to work on that. I'm running a little bit out of time here, but I just will finish with one more thing, and that is that there's been some talk from the federal government about the MAID program. That's the medically assisted suicide, or medically assisted assistance in dying program. We are doing a kind of a deep dive on what the federal government is looking at, and we want to be able to make sure that whatever that program looks like, it's going to be protecting Albertans and making sure that if someone has a problem with suicide ideation, MAID should not be their solution. And this is something that we feel very, very passionate about. So stay tuned. That report should be coming out as well this year. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I will say that 2025 is going to be an interesting year. As you know, we are kind of a little fish in a big pond, and we have a neighbor to the south that is quite determined to add 25% tariffs to every Canadian product going into the United States. This is something where I will tell you, we have our premier down there trying to negotiate away from that stance. Just this morning, she has indicated that that is not does not look good, and that those tariffs that the president-elect looks like he's quite committed to that pathway. That is very concerning to me. It's probably the biggest concern that I have is about what that will do to us. As you know, we send 4.3 million barrels a day of oil down there. We send a lot of natural gas as well, and we send a lot of beef down there. And there's lots of other stuff we send as well, lumber and that sort of thing as well. But if we are not able to make a breakthrough on this, that could cause us major financial problems in our province, as well as job losses. So I'm hopeful that the Premier will continue to be able to have the dialogue with the President-elect and the new administration that's there, so that we can stave off what I would say is an economic disaster if that comes through. With that, I'll turn the time back to you for questions.
Thank you, MLA Hunter. I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions, comments? Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, MLA Hunter. And I would really like to express my appreciation for everything you do for us here in Coaldale. You're a strong advocate for our community. Can you pass along our thanks to Premier Smith as well for working with the President-elect in the U.S., because I feel it is very important that we get our product down to the States. My question is, with the healthcare system, last June all the boards were dissolved, and then we're put into 3 pillars. When are the new boards going to be effective so the healthcare system stops slipping backwards as it has in the last 8 months?
Well, I don't have an answer for you in terms of the timeline, Jason. So unfortunately, I can't tell you when those are going to be set back up again. As you know, with the restructuring, just recently, as this week, the CEO of AHS, Athana Metsalopoulos, was released and let go, and there's a new interim president CEO. So there's lots of changes that are going on right now. I know that their first priority was to be able to set up each of those parts of the healthcare system, breaking it up into the different parts. I know that the mental health and addictions program has been the biggest priority of the cabinet. As the other ones were working, they needed to have some changes done to them. But that mental health, we had a mental health crisis and problems in Alberta that we needed to address, and so lots of resources were going towards fixing that. I think that that's pretty well done now, and I'm hoping that they can move on to some of these other issues that are still outstanding, as you stated.
Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. Good evening, MLA Hunter. I just wanted to also thank you for all your hard advocacy that you do for our town and the surrounding area. My question for you is, you started off your little presentation by mentioning the employment statistics around town and around the province. And I was curious to know if this also will apply to the homeless population and how you guys are going to work to help them off their feet to help with the affordable housing.
Well, I think there's certainly a case to be made that someone needs to have a home. They need to feel like there's some certainty in their lives. There are some people who are homeless that the vast majority of them have mental health problems. And so this is, again, why we have put so many of the resources that we have into addressing mental health and addiction issues. In Lethbridge and in southern Alberta, we we're acutely aware of what's happening even in the hospitals where we have EMS staff, we have frontline staff that are being burnt out because the same people who have these mental health and addiction issues are coming in. It's a revolving door that happens with them. So in terms of being able to help them, get into housing, there is a place for them now. We do have the resources throughout Alberta. Some of them choose not to go in, and so we can't force them into that. But the 150 million that we talked about, the affordable housing money the extra 150 million that we're putting into it is, again, trying to address that problem of making sure that people have a place that they can go to. So whether it's an actual affordable house like an apartment, condo, or a shelter, those are the things that we need to make sure that we're helping out where we can with people.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your answer.
Any Deputy Mayor Chapman?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, MLA Hunter. Good to see you again. Happy New Year to you. I want to just ask you a question about an event last week being held in Lethbridge. And 4 of us from council went, Councillor Beekman, Councillor Pickering, Councillor Reese, myself, and of course our Director of Operations, Terry May, attended an event in Lethbridge with Minister Rebecca Schultz on water and the whole dynamics around water. I guess just to cut to the point, what would be your takeaways or what was going to be your suggestions for water, particularly for municipalities such as Coaldale?
Well, so as you know, we're studying both water and wastewater in this corridor between Lethbridge and Medicine Hat. When we have 2 studies that are ongoing right now, Coaldale, as you know, Deputy Mayor, is spearheading the first, the water component of that. The wastewater. Potable water. Sorry. And then Tabor is spearheading the wastewater component. We will know a lot more after we have that study done. That's going to be helpful for us in terms of being able to figure out what are the water needs, not just now, but into the future as well. I've always said you don't open up the Constitution and you don't open up the Water Act. Those 2 things, because you never know what you're going to get afterwards, right? But the Premier has put it into Minister Schultz's mandate letter that she is to open up the Water Act, mostly because she's trying to help understand what's going on with interbasin transfers. And so she did that, and she says, look, while we have it open, we're going to address any other concerns or issues. But whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over, and certainly as soon as you open that up, there's a lot of people that have their opinion on this. And we saw that at that meeting. Mm-hmm. Which is fine. It's great. We need to have that feedback, but we're going to have many more of those consultation feedback meetings, and let's figure out what is the right approach. Southern Alberta is a drier area, but because it's drier and we have more heat units, we can grow some fantastic crops down here and have some great industries. We just have to make sure we have the certainty of that water. And so, as you know, we are expanding the irrigation off-stream storage. Chin Reservoir is a big project, the largest of the projects that we're doing. And we're going to carry on with those. We're going to make sure that those happen. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I honestly believe that the best days are ahead of us in Southern Alberta when it comes to expansion and opportunities, business opportunities, job opportunities, because of what we're doing here. We grow 60 specialty crops, and we can grow a lot more specialty crops as well, as long as we have the certainty of water.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? So Grant, one of the highlights of this council term for myself and many other members sitting at this table was your assistance with the R.C.M.P policing model, the 70-30 split. So Coaldale was the only municipality in all of Canada paying 100% of policing costs. So you really went to bat for us on that. So, and that's continuing on, hopefully with the provincial government, that because that's puts a little over 500,000 back into our piggy bank here to help us with other service needs in our community. So thank you for your help with that. And another standout one for me is the issue we had with Alberta Health Services and the Core Flex model for the ambulance. So we got them back on the 12-hour shift, and that helps us a lot with our code red, which means there's no ambulance available in Coaldale. And our fire chief is going to be giving us an update later on the agenda on that. So those are a couple of big standouts for me. We also wanted to thank you for the most recent grant we got for a new storm pond that's going to be going in south of Coaldale. That's part of the Malloy, what's that part number? 2B, Malloy 2B. And I'm a visual guy, so that thing's 100,000 cubes of water that holds, and that's the equivalent of 40 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So that's something much needed on the south side of Coaldale so that we can look after overland flooding when the time comes. And then you also were instrumental in getting us $4.5 million for our new potable water reservoir that's just on the northwest corner of Coaldale. And that, again, is the equivalent of 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools, and that'll take care of our potable water needs for the next 25 to 30 years. So I really appreciate you helping us with that as well. And what can we do for you now is a couple of questions. So as far as any regional initiatives and priorities that you're going to be focused on, and anything that we can help you with.
My focus is, again, for the next 3 years, will be to continue to build out this agri-food processing corridor. We need to have good data and good information on water and wastewater needs, and also on commercial utility needs as well. And as we expand this irrigation, I've always said, as you build it, they'll come. And this is what we're going to see from, companies like New Cold that came in, expansion from McCain's and different other companies coming in as well. So that is going to be my focus. Coaldale is well positioned, as you know, Mayor and Council, to be able to land some of these new greenfield projects coming in because of your tax structure. And so, as you know, these new agri-food processing companies are very robotic heavy. And so as long as you have the same kind of scenario you do in Lethbridge, that they tax the same way they do in Lethbridge, it makes them uncompetitive with a town like Coaldale. So my recommendation is to you, keep that tax benefit and that tax advantage that you have, because you will land those deals. And as you work on building out the industrial site that you have and the spur going out there, which I think was very visionary on your part, which is fantastic. I think that there's lots of great opportunities in Coaldale. So keep up the great work. It's always a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you. And the last comment I want to make is spring is just around the corner, and golf carts. So Coaldale is very appreciative of you helping us out with that as well. And we look forward to having that in place in our own municipality in time for golf season. So I'll open it up one last time for council. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you again. It was really great to see and appreciate your coming out.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Could I get someone to make a motion that we receive the Coaldale check-in by MLA Hunter as information? Councillor Reese makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 8.1 under new business, Citizens on Patrol Vehicle Assignment. And we have our Director of Protective Services and Fire Chief Clayton Rutberg will be presenting on that. Clayton, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Here tonight to talk with you about and seek formal approval from Council to sign over the former photo radar van to the Citizens on Patrol group for their patrols. So in December of 2024, the existing photo radar van was removed from service due to its age within the fleet. In normal operations, we would be selling this asset off and as a part of our fleet within the town of Coaldale. The estimated value of the asset is $10,000. And after consulting with our insurance provider for business and liability reasons, the town is best positioned to sell the asset to the Citizens on Patrol group, in keeping with the desire to support that group. Once the Citizens on Patrol does take ownership of the van, they would be able to insure it and would be responsible for maintenance of the vehicle as well. The maintenance of the insurance, fuel, oil changes, and various maintenance of the vehicle is estimated to cost roughly $5,000 annually. In addition to providing the van for the Citizens on Patrol, there's a few options that are presented before you today. One of them includes a little bit of an operating cost to help offset that piece that the Citizens on Patrol would be looking at as their operating cost by taking the van. So a few different options before Council today. One, that the Council sell the town-owned van to the Citizens on Patrol Society for below market value sum of $1, and further that Council cover an annual operating expense of the said van, including the insurance, up to a maximum of $5,000. Option number 2, that Council sell the van to Citizens on Patrol for the market value of $10,000 and or another amount determined by Council, and further that Council cover a portion of the operating expenses. And option 3, that Council provides administration with respect to the transportation needs of Citizens on Patrol, a different idea.
Thank you. I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions, comments? Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. So just a couple of questions. Are we doing the right thing for this organization? Do we know what nowhere in here does it tell me what the insurance is going to cost Citizens on Patrol? Is it going to be $6,000 a year and we're going to throw them $5,000 to insure this vehicle? What's the liability risk for the town if they're volunteers under the town of Coaldale? And then lastly is one of the comments or statements in here, it says the town insurance provider has advised that it is better to allow them to operate independently and to provide them with a cash donation to cover off insurance, fuel, maintenance expenses. I don't know when we take that type of advice from our insurance provider to provide expenses to another organization. So is this coming from our emergency services, this recommendation, or is it coming from our insurance company?
The recommendation about the insurance is from the insurance company. The other portion of it, with them being under themselves as a society and not under the town, they're not under RWCB. It was felt that it was better for them to be operating on their own than under our control.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be prepared to make a motion to accept, make a motion for option 1. The town-owned van to the Citizens on Patrol for the sum of $1, and further that Council cover the annual operating expenses of the van, including fuel and insurance, to a maximum of $5,000 per annum. That would be my motion. And before we vote on it, I'm not too sure if we want our president of the Citizens on Patrol to make any further statements on this or not.
Thank you. We have the COP President Rod Tilson in attendance. Did you have anything to add to the discussion? If you could just come to the microphone and turn the mic on so our visitors at home can hear what's being said.
We do ongoing requests for donations. We just recently sent out a letter to, well, the chamber had got a copy of it, and they fanned it out to all the local businesses. To date, we've had some response on that. We received a couple of donations from the local businesses, one being Adora Kitchen and Daryl at Stop and Go. We also were provided to volunteer for a casino in Lethbridge with the Coaldale Baseball Association. And with that, by attending and helping them out at the casino, we're going to get $250 for each people that volunteered. So those are things, initiatives that we're doing to build the program and to be able to cover some of the cost. However, the costs are greater than what we're bringing in, so this would certainly help. Yeah, if the town could assist us yearly on this to keep the initiative going. And I think it's going to be beneficial to Coaldale. I think give us a year and you're going to see the benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Councillor Avery?
Thank you, Mayor. I support it 100%. I just don't want to see this organization run short on money. And in June or July, they've got no money for fuel. Or I think we need to support this organization 100%. And putting that $5,000 on there, like why can't we just say we're paying for their fuel and we're paying for their oil changes, we're paying for those expenses. A set of tires is $1,200. Well, why should they have? They're doing our community a favor by being part of this organization. So I don't want to see them pigeonholed in 6 months. That we made a motion that we're only giving them $5,000.
Thank you. Just before I open it up to other members of council, take care of that comment first. We have our CFO in attendance, so Kyle, maybe if you could come up to the microphone and see how we could mitigate that.
So in regards to one of the previous questions for insurance, so I've already been working with Mr. Tilson on getting quotes for the insurance for the van, so I don't think that would be an issue. The two ideas between essentially providing an operating grant to help support the operations or paying for the, each itemized expense. Administration's recommendation would just be to proceed with the operating grant. It is cleaner. It is consistent with current practice. We have other organizations throughout the town, like the museum, the Hanurad, just to name a couple, that we do provide ongoing operating grants. There is no instance currently in practice that we pay for itemized expenses of another organization daily. That does create some risk as to not setting a preset amount, not a cap, and who ultimately is going to be approving each itemized expenses. Is it up to town's administration to determine what is reasonable and what is not reasonable? So it does create a lot of judgment that professionally that we would want to stay away from, and that's why we would lean towards the yearly operating grant. So, we have had other. Should the amount come back and be $15,000-$20,000 a year, like we don't anticipate that. It's just maintenance for a van that we're discussing. But we have had other organizations, come to council for at budget time for various requests. So if costs were to significantly escalate, again, we don't anticipate that, but there are other avenues that those organizations do have in communicating with administration and the town to deal with it. So that's kind of the summary of why it is our recommendation to proceed with the operating grant rather than the payment of the expenses.
Thank you. Follow up from Councillor Avery.
Thank you, and thank you, Kyle. Just one thing that needs to be brought up is we spearheaded Citizens on Patrol. We didn't spearhead the other organizations. We started to assist them with smaller dollar amounts, which has increased annually and a considerable lot more than $5,000 annually in the last couple of years. But this is a group that we spearheaded as a town council to get going to alleviate some of the pressure and crimes that are happening in our town. So I appreciate what you're saying, but I don't feel that what we're setting aside for them is going to be enough when we've had other organizations that we support, not spearheaded, come to us and we've doubled their requisitions in this last year with our budget.
Thank you. And just before I move on to other members of council, just to close the loop on Councillor Avery's comments. So if something comes out of the ordinary, administration can deal with that internally. And if it's excessive dollar-wise, they could come back to council to get that number amended then. Kyle, how would you see that happening?
The number presented, the $5,000, is just kind of the estimate for the van that we just kind of threw together. If there are concerns about the amount we're providing, council can definitely increase that as part of this motion. That $5,000 isn't locked in stone. So if there are concerns, I would recommend deliberation as to increasing the amount. But again, professionally, our opinion would still be to maintain the operating grant. And to your point, Mayor, if something out of the ordinary was to come up, again, we can always come back to council and have those discussions at that point. It doesn't lock in stone.
Thank you. So would it be fair to say if we were to increase that to $7,500? Would you accept a friendly amendment for that?
Yeah, initially, thank you, Mayor. Initially, I'd considered $6,000, and in chatting with Mayor on the side is that if we looked at this this budget number for $5,000 this year and then review it for 26, that might be helpful. I thought that $500 a month would probably help with any operating. If there's any leftover dollars, they could put it into a reserve fund for new tires or other capital items that might be needed for the operation of the association. So I'd be comfortable with adding another $2,500 if that would be. But at the same time, I would just like to ask that if we could add another further that the Citizens on Patrol provide an annual financial statement as other associations do. Is that going to be fine with you, Kyle? If we add that in?
Yeah, I think the request for year-end financial information would be sufficient and adequate. I just want to make clear for the number that whatever the number being presented for this operating grant, we don't have anything set aside right now in our operating budget for this. So when we come back to April to setting the mill rates, we are going to be adding this as a budget adjustment. This is a request coming after budget deliberation. So I just want to be entirely clear on that council will, again in April, May, receive the formal budget update as part of the mill rate for this.
Thank you. So to be clear then, Deputy Mayor Chapman, you're okay with a friendly amendment to $7,500?
Yes, I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, thank you. And then Councillor Reese, you had a question or comment? Okay, and then Councillor Pickering.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn, through to Kyle. So would it be easier for us to look at this in 6 months so we have an idea of what it is costing run per month, or do you want us just go to the 7,500?
If we cap it at 7,500, unless something extraordinary happens, that will be more than enough to cover their yearly operating costs, I would suspect. And then if it needs to come back before council, if there's something out of the ordinary, then so be it. Okay, Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to follow up, I'm not sure why this would be a new budget item, because this should have been budgeted in somebody's budget last year when we were deliberating budgets, because we knew the COP was going to be operational. We were trying to get insurance. So that insurance money should be able to take it from somebody's budget. It should maybe be a $2,500 difference, not a $5,000 difference, because that should have already been in the budget that we approved in December out of somebody's operational line. The fuel, the insurance, the maintenance would have already been in the budget. I don't understand why this would be a whole new conversation.
The reason for that is we knew this vehicle was being eliminated from the fleet with the photo radar being eliminated. So we cut back all the expenses associated with the photo radar, with the operating van being one of those. So those were all removed to essentially help reduce the budget deficit from the lost photo radar as much as we could back in December's deliberations.
Last chance, questions, comments? So there's a motion on the floor by Deputy Mayor Chapman that council sell the town-owned van to Coaldale Citizens on Patrol Society for below market value for the sum of $1. Further, that council cover the annual operating expenses of said van, including fuel and insurance, up to a maximum of $7,500 per year. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Chapman or Deputy Mayor Chapman, that was a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just suggest the addition of financial statements annually, if that's something we could add that, or do you want that to be a separate item altogether as an option? I just don't want to make it a required. I'll leave it out of the motion if that's the case.
I would say from administration's perspective, we wouldn't require that, but it would be more to council's comfort as to seeing the results of the funds that you are allocating to the group.
The only reason I asked that, Kyle, is that other groups, like you mentioned, the Handy Ride Association and the museum, do provide annual financial statements.
I don't think we require them to provide them. Like, we don't review them as ministry. They may provide them as your presentation to council. So it may be something that you request that annually the group present to council and include that information. Could be a good suggestion.
When they make their presentation.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll leave that part out. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And then Deputy Mayor Chapman is our council rep on Citizens on Patrol, so you can work with your executive to make sure that information is provided as part of their AGM. I see no further discussion. Can I call for the vote on the motion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, thank you, Clayton. Thank you, Kyle. And thank you to our Citizens on Patrol volunteers that are in attendance. Appreciate everything you do for our community. Moving on to agenda item 8.2, the Circular Materials Agreement for Recycled Residential Materials. And we have our Director of Operations, Terry May, presenting. Terry, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And tonight I bring back the the recycling agreement from Circular Materials. A little bit of background on this. 2022, the government of Alberta announced the province would be implementing EPR, or Extended Producer Responsibility Process, with respect to recycled materials. With EPR coming into effect April 1st, 2025, this item recaps for Council the process and steps taken to arrive at a reasonable agreement between the town and Circular Materials for residential recycling. During the Committee of the Whole meeting of September 3rd, 2024, Council was presented with information about the changes in legislation, the upcoming changes to recycling within the province. And I'll just do a little recap here of the information for the people watching at home. EPR shifts the cost of recycling materials like single-use products, packaging, and paper products, hazardous materials, special products, away from our municipalities and everyday Albertans to the producers and manufacturers who supply those products in the marketplace. In the context of extended producer responsibility, the Producer Responsibility Organization, or PRO, is the business entity established to collaborate with producers, aiding them in fulfilling the regulatory obligations under EPR. In the province, the pro is Circular Materials, who is responsible for gathering the recycled materials. At the time, we were offered two opportunities or two options. One was to opt in, where we would continue on operating normally and make an agreement with Circular Materials, where they would just reimburse us for recycling costs, or opt out, and they would then line up the contractors, and we would have nothing to do with the recycling. We have been following for option one. Due to several factors, obviously our current contract with our supplier for waste services, just the uniformity of our processes and the desire not to have any interruptions of service to our residents. Over fall 2024 season, we've been negotiating with Circular Materials and have come to an agreement between the two parties. Our current waste contract will stay the same, and residents won't see any change to their service. But on the back end, the town will be compensated monthly for the recycling overhead and some promotional services. This is an 18-month interim agreement with an optional 13-month extension, which will generally cover all of our current waste contract at that time, and in all likelihood, Circular Materials will be managing the whole province's recycling, and we won't have any options to continue on. As far as financial impact, financial costs will be a net positive at this time, as it will be compensated for the recycling stream. The benefit of the savings with respect to the recycling stream will offset the inflationary increases we're experiencing in the costs associated with collection of other waste streams, such as garbage and compost, the contracts of which we were recently due for renewal. Had the province not directed producers to take responsibility for the costs associated with collecting and disposing of recyclables, the town's monthly collection bills would have increased with the rising cost of other streams. This topic has been reviewed, as I said, at the Committee of the Whole meeting with Council, internally as well. And I recommend today that Council receive this Circular Materials update for information, and further to that the town proceed with the opt-in option. And I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. I'll open up to members of council. Any questions, comments? As Terry mentioned, we went through this at a Committee of the Whole meeting, pretty straightforward. Seeing no more questions, could I get someone to make a motion that council receive the Circular Materials update for information, and further that the town proceed with the opt-in option with the Circular Materials for residential recycling? Councillor Avery makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Terry. Moving on to departmental reports, agenda item 9.1. We have our Director of Protective Services and Fire Chief Clayton Rutberg presenting on the Protective Services Q3 report. Clayton, whenever you're ready.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. Here to present the Q3 report for Protective Services Department. So starting off with our total call volume for the year. We have seen our call volume climbing again in 2024. So this number is just to the end of Q3 of 2024. We had 546 calls. We did finish off the year with a total of 745 calls, which we'll have for you when we bring our annual year-end report here in probably another month or so, just as we put those stats together. Moving on to our next slide, we have our call types and info. So this is a bit of a breakdown of our call types, as well as the location of those calls and where they occurred, and a bit of a breakdown between our medical and non-medical percentages. So about 55% of our calls were medical in 2024, with 45% of them non-medical. on our next slide, just kind of highlighting our fire prevention aspects that we touch on. So quite a few more than last year that we've done with our fire inspections. Total of 96 in town last year. Again, we went through some staffing changeovers and things like that last year where we didn't quite get as much done as we normally would. We got a total of 225 done in town last year, or sorry, this 2024, and then, up to quarter 3 of 2024, pardon me. And then again, you can see a jump in the county as well up to the end of quarter 3 of 2024. So we'll still have our remainder of quarter 4 yet to come in our annual report. We did have quite a few community engagement and tours, which is mainly our fire hall tours, January to September. We had 14, and that's not even including our busy time yet, highlighting the October fire prevention numbers. They tend to drive up. Throughout 2024, up to the end of quarter 3, we had 5 smoke alarm replacements. So we do get our smoke detectors donated each year, where we can go out if people don't have working smoke alarms. We can replace those. So we've had a total of 5 up to the end of quarter 3. As well as facility emergency response plans reviews. So businesses that have to have an emergency response plan in, like chemical storage facilities, things like that. We had a few of those signed off throughout quarter 1 to 3 as well. One of the highlights that's on here as well, though, is our pre-plans. So our fire inspection, we're looking for code violations, things like that. Our pre-plans, we're going out and looking at buildings and looking at how we respond to them. Where's the fire department connection located? Is it identified on a map for ourselves? Important contacts and stuff like that. So throughout this year, we've had 87 pre-plans built on town buildings in town and 26 built on buildings in the county. Training in quarter 3, again, was busy. We did highlight some agriculture rescue and farm extrication and equipment familiarization. That was kind of in the summer leading into the harvest season, so refreshing on that before we got in there. Utilizing our live fire props, refreshing on motor vehicle extrication. You'll kind of see as we go through each quarter, we hit on a lot of these topics where we refresh our skills for our firefighters on each of the topics each quarter. Some more highlights. We also had 2 members attend the Big Rig Heavy Rescue Symposium in Olds. 6 members started their driver operator training and are currently getting signed off right now. And we started our Prairie Winds Fire and Emergency Services Academy as well, which we have 15 students in this year. We also hosted the Lethbridge County Fire Department hose lay competition with Nobleford, Colehurst, and Picture Butte. Picture Butte was the winner of that competition, so most likely they'll be hosting that next year. Moving into the municipal enforcement side of things, our occurrence reports. So up to the end of quarter 3, total of 426 incidents that we've responded to for municipal enforcement, and kind of the breakdown on that. But here on the next slide, I kind of highlight some of our major components that we've done. Community standards in quarter 3 alone, we had 63 reports done on community standards issues, which represents 41% of the workload over quarter 1 to quarter 3 for our staff there. We also, as our staff sergeant pointed out earlier, had a large number of dog calls in quarter 3, 23 alone, of which 5 were actual dog bites. And this was actually over the 3 quarters of the year, was 21% of our workload. And a bit of a typo there, I had 2023 instead of 2024, but. Our stats on our photo radar up till the end of quarter 3, so remaining fairly consistent, going through that as well, with our average speed over of 19 kilometers an hour, which it seems to kind of hover in that area. And last but not least, our emergency management aspect. Q3 is typically a bit quieter for us, not necessarily with incident type stuff, but just including most of the summer, there's not as much training and stuff going on with municipal staff. So thanks to our Director of Operations, we were actually able to do a review and implementation of the Town of Coaldale Stormwater Operations Plan and update that and make sure it's current. That makes up a portion of our municipal emergency plan. As well as we had an ICS 200 and 300 course completed in Q3 as well. And that is it if there's any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Clayton. And I just want you to pass along our thanks for those pre-plans. I know there's a lot of work and that's a lot of pre-plans to get done in a year. So I really appreciate that from your guys. And then one question for you. What do you need from us? I notice your code reds are starting to go up. Is there anything you need from council at this time, or is it something that you're just monitoring?
It's something that we're monitoring. Again, I think awareness and that lobbying back up to the provincial government always does help. Again, that's 31 for the first 3 quarters. It is probably up in the 40s for the year. So seeing not quite what we were seeing before it went to 12-hour shifts, but it is creeping back up again. We do see our ambulances gone a lot more. This year, obviously, seen a lot more ambulances from Lethbridge and other areas in our community. So I think just that awareness back up helps to lobby for better service for us here in Coaldale for that, because that a lot of times is time and effort for our volunteers as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments for our presenter? Deputy Mayor Chapin.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. And just further to Councillor Avery's comments and question, as I think the one thing that stands out to me in your report is the query about and the concerns about the unsightly premises and the dog incidences or animal incidences, I guess we could pluralize it. Is there anything we can do to try to educate our community about some of these things, or is there something that we can do to make your workload easier? Because obviously it's a lot of work that you're putting into.
I think we did do a pretty decent job in 2024 of education. CPO Anderson reached out to a lot of our empty lots early last year. So I think our process went better, and we did do quite a bit of education. I think there's always kind of the problem lots that we'll see creep up. I think part of that too is we've seen some changes with our fees and rates and what we're charging for that. So hopefully that has an impact as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council receive Protective Services Q3 report as information? Councillor Pickering makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Clayton. Pass on our thanks to your team. Moving on to agenda item 10.1 under council and committee reports. We have Councillor Jason Beekman giving us a verbal update on the Coaldale Library.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for giving me the chance to give the update. First off, a big thank you and shout out to Head Librarian Kendra Burse for helping me out with this report and for her and her staff and the amazing job that they're doing. Library has been an extremely busy place. Statistic-wise, they've seen an 11% increase in circulation stats in the last 6 months. Book drop has increased 24% over 2023. Processing of interlibrary loans has increased 90%. Since the toy library expansion last year, toy circulation is up over 40% now. Technology help, where patrons, they like to come in and use the front desk and the staff for help with technology, i.e. printing, phone issues, app issues, etc. That used to be about 5 to 7 requests a month. They're now seeing over 30 a month in terms of technology help. Overall foot traffic in the library has increased almost 30% since 2023. The most notable growth is the skate library, and that has contributed to one of the biggest increases for heavy foot traffic. A lot of patrons are getting library cards just to borrow skates. Through October to December, the library saw a 24% increase in new memberships just for that time frame compared to the same time frame of 2023. While that's significant, that stat is only for Coaldale, and it doesn't cover other libraries and the broad effect the skate library has had. People have taken out memberships at their own libraries like Lethbridge, Raymond, Vauxhall to utilize our skate library. I can attest to that. I have 3 or 4 friends that have gotten library memberships in Lethbridge just to use our skate library. For November and December, our skates were borrowed 286 times. Overall Saturday foot traffic between 118 and 132% increase since the skate library is opened. The highest Saturday in December saw 372 patrons through the door in 6 hours. That type of number is something that the library would see on a special busy weekday where they're open for 12 hours. A shout out to the Kinsmen for recognizing the need for the skate aid trainers. They donated 10 to the library, and the Kinsmen have also said that they're going to purchase another 6 to 10 helmets for the skate library. With the popularity, the library is now looking for additional pairs of skates. Because of the overall increase in the library activity, the library has hired an additional part-time clerk, which you may recall was discussed during the budget deliberations. Just for some other numbers thrown out there, aside from the skate library, the Christmas Craft Fair show saw over 800 visitors. The Night of Lights, we saw over 900 visitors. That might have had something to do with the programming, the hot chocolate cookies, and stories and pictures with Anna and Elsa from Frozen. The programming is all planned programming is chugging along. We have a new partnership with the Gem of the West for mornings at the museum. Program called Stuffy Sleepover with the CLCLC. A reminder to everybody that the Read for 15 challenge is January 27th, and this year's target is 3,000 readers. So January 27th, pick your 15 minutes to read. Teen Zone and Dungeons and Dragons for teens and adults is still operating, and that's once a month. And the Homeschool Science Exhibition, February 12th. Last year there was 26 entrants and 85 community guests that came to check it out, and they are expecting an increase. The library is continuing to provide outreach to the Coaldale Health Center, Child's Pace Early Learning Center, John Davidson School, Prairie Woods Secondary, and Coaldale Community Food Bank Society. One note to finish off with, in 2024, the library was recognized by Chinook Arch for a Rewards in Excellence and Distinction Award, and that's where Chinook Arch recognizes the creativity and innovative ways in which libraries are impacting their communities, and Coaldale won for our partnership with Child's Pace Early Learning Center. And with that, there's my report, and if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you. That was a very well done, in-depth report.
We can thank Kendra for that. So.
Before I open it up to council, I'll just make a comment. I've borrowed skates for 5 of my grandkids twice now, and it's a very smooth process. The only recommendation is the library's got to put their names on those skate assists, because as soon as you leave them sitting by themselves for 30 seconds, somebody thinks they're free for the taking. And then the trouble is on the skating rink, they're all the same color, so you don't know whose is whose. So, but no, it's a very, very well done process. So I'll open it up to members of council. Questions, comments? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council receive the Coaldale Library update as information? Councillor Beekman, what makes that? Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to information items, agenda items 12.1 to 12.7. We have the Coaldale Chamber of Commerce meeting minutes from November 6th. We have the Avail engagement letter. We have the pause meeting minutes from November 13th. We have the Lethbridge Regional Water Management Services Commission meeting minutes from April 22nd. We have the Southern Alberta Energy from Waste meeting minutes from November 29th. And again, we have the Southern Alberta Energy from Waste press release from December 17th, 2024. And finally, the Coaldale Library newsletter for January, February. Were there any questions, comments about any of those information items? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council receive items 12.1 to 12.7 as information? Deputy Mayor Chapman, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So that concludes the open portion of the meeting. I will require a motion that council will move into closed session at 6:30 p.m. in accordance with section 197-4-B of the Municipal Government Act to discuss matters exempt from disclosure for items 13.1, 13.2, subject to section 21, intergovernment relations, item 13.1, subject to section 24, advice from officials, item 13.2, subject to section 23, local public confidences. Item 13.3, subject to section 17, personal privacy, and section 25, economic and other interests of a public body. Who would care to make that motion? Councillor Reese. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We shall take a 10-minute break.